Well, Jim, our next question was sent into CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi. Charlie says,
Hello, Charlie.
Adam Cole recently said Shawn Michaels has been instrumental in producing all of his NXT matches. What are your thoughts on Shawn Michaels taking such a hands-on approach with Adam Cole?
Well, I'm glad, because if Michaels wants something around there, he usually gets it. And if he likes Adam and is helping Adam with his matches, pretty much everything that needs to get done is going to get done. I never said that Michaels wasn't an in-ring genius as a performer. He can get anything over or bury anything that he wants to. And, Adam Cole reminds me in a lot of ways, physically and work-wise, like Michaels. Not the biggest guy and not the biggest bodybuilder, but just smooth work and athleticism. So I think it's a good fit. I think it's a good match. And apparently Michaels has changed his ways. Everybody said that. He just hadn't changed enough of them for me. But if he's not imparting the strife in the locker room that he was 20 years ago now, but instead is helping these young guys and putting together great matches for them, then bravo.
Our next question, Jim, was sent in to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com from Luke Blair. While watching Wednesday Night Dynamite, I couldn't help but listen to good old JR compare the Young Bucks to the Rock and Roll Express. What are your thoughts on that subject?
Sometimes a 7-figure contract is so opaque you can't see the facts through it. I mean, there are comparisons. Both of them wore frilly tights and bandanas and sashes and ribbons and scarves and things that hang off of them. And both of them were a tag team, and both of them were at one point teeny bopper idols. And eventually both of them started losing their fucking hair and don't look as young as they used to. It's just that it took the Rock and Roll Express 30 years longer.
What do you think when you see comparisons? Because I've seen it, I'm sure you have, between the Bucks and the Midnight Express.
I assume that they're living in a state where weed is legal, or there's some, portion of them that's challenged in some way. I mean, that doesn't happen often, but I have seen that, and I don't in any way see any comparison whatsoever. I mean, what would be the comparison between the Young Bucks and the Midnight Express?
I guess just the double team maneuvers, the tag team working together.
But then there's the, young children doing shit that grown men should do, and the stupidity of some of the things that they would do, and the fact that Dennis Condrey, nor Stan Lane, nor Bobby Eaton ever, to my knowledge, did any goddamn giant fucking backflips off the top rope to the floor on people who were waiting to catch them, or super kicked any 9-year-old kids for their birthday. I just, they're both tag teams.
Well, another version of this that I've heard, and I've seen this one around too, is that a lot of the complaints you have about the Young Bucks, for instance, are similar to the complaints the old timers had about the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll in the 80s. What do you say to that? What do you remember about that? Did people really have a big problem with the matches you guys were having?
Well, Ole Anderson didn't want us to do some fucking double team spot that ended with me getting crashed into and taking a bump over a table at some point one night. He said, you're doing too much of these shows here. It was a spot show. You're going to get sued. We weren't going to get sued. We knew what we were doing. And Ole might be the grumpy old man. Well, we used to, work that arm. But it's not even about that. I don't understand why people think it's about that. If it was credible, if it looked legitimate, or within the framework, I should say, of pro wrestling looked legitimate, somebody will say, well, you can't shoot a guy off. You can. He won't come back as smoothly, but you can shoot him off. if it looked legitimate and was framed in the course of a contest and that there was no obvious cooperation with the opponent that broke the illusion, I don't believe there was too far. Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid did a bunch of flips, but they looked like two world-class athletes having a struggle with each other and flipping to either escape or add momentum to, rather than two guys that had worked out a goddamn spot and were going to fucking go through it at the same speed or with same facials or ducking what they didn't know was coming, and et cetera, and just being preposterous. And I'm sorry, if that's not everybody's rule of thumb, it should be with professional wrestling. If you can simulate something and not lose the effect of a contest, you can do it. If you can't, you shouldn't be doing it. And that's, I think, where the difference lies. It's not about who's flipping and where. It's, if the 300-pound fucking guy can do a goddamn backflip off the top rope and it looks good and doesn't kill a guy, a lot of people say, well, big guys shouldn't do that. But yeah, do that if you can fucking do it, but it better be the goddamn finish. For fuck's sake, it's just stupid now. And not only with the moves themselves or the way that they're performed, but the number and repetition and speed of same. It's a video game. It's ludicrous. And this whole business is sold on emotions, whether it's hate or anger or love or fear or violence or passion or whatever the case. It's not goddamn, on who can have the most flawless match. If you have a flawless match, that's a flaw, because there's no way you can have a flawless fight. The matches where guys were professional enough to have a framework and a finish and call it or do it as they went, there were herky jerks, because they're going to be when you legitimately don't know what's coming. But that was the art of professional wrestling, was to do that with four people on four sides in one take, what the Hollywood stuntmen couldn't do. Have a simulated conflict in one take in front of all those witnesses with very little, if anything, pre-planned, and get people into it. What this is a goddamn exhibition of performing skills.
So again, to my question, and I'll update it a little bit.
I don't even know what your question was.
What do you say? What do you say to the argument that your complaints about the Bucks and Omega, and obviously it's not all of modern wrestling, specifically this.
I know now what your question was. How does it compare with the other old farts?
Yeah, the guys who said Flair and Steamboat were doing too much in the 70s, or that the Rock and Roll and the Midnights were doing too much in the 80s. There's examples of this all through time, obviously.
Yeah, what I heard from them was, you're doing too much and we can't keep up, is what I heard from them. And I know that's what the kids now hear from me. But once again, there was a difference. Yes, if you went too far in doing something that was preposterous, then yes, we accepted that criticism. If we went a little too far on a spot show spot and they looked sideways at us like I was a little silly, okay. But as long as we could perform what we were doing, where the shit looked as legitimate, at least as the rest of the guys on the card, if not more so, we did not feel we were doing too much. And since we were always put in positions to be in main event matches or high on the card matches and in money drawing matches, we didn't hold back in that instance, because business was good and people were coming to see us. If we were really just on an underneath match, it's not like that either version of the Midnight Express on a third match on a show in Raleigh, a cold match. We didn't want to tank it and give people a bad match, but you were not going to see Bobby Eaton come off top rope 4 fucking times, because that would be ridiculous, and that was not our place on the card. We went out and did our shit, entertained people, and had a good match without trying to steal the show away from the main event, unless we were one of the main events. There was a level of professionalism instead of everybody as we've talked about on the shows these days. Everybody tries to go out and have the most classic match that's ever been held with whoever they're in the ring with. And sometimes you need to just have 8 minutes and get somebody over. And that's it. If we were in that position, if we were supposed to go 8 minutes and just get over, that's what we would do. We wouldn't try to steal the show from fucking Flair and Steamboat. So there's once again mental levels of this that people that get in the business, whether they're brilliant or idiots, don't understand today because they were never taught positioning on the cards. A lot of the old timers would say you're doing too much because if you do, and remember when Roy Shire told Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens, you're doing too much, slow it down, stop it. Why? Not because their shit looked phony or because their shit was subpar. They were the best tag team in the world. It was because Roy Shire knew that in 6 months they'd be in another territory and he'd still be running that town and he wasn't going to be able to find anybody good enough to follow him. Sometimes you were accused of doing too much because it was bad for the business in general because people would be expected to follow that. And that would, to me, that was true. If you were going so fucking far that you were endangering people, hurting people, or getting hurt yourself. But at the same time, if you were putting in money matches, you have to fucking get over and you have to give people what they came for. But that's another reason why the Midnight and Rock and Roll never did. Remember when the Midnight and the Southern Boys, 1990 Great American Bash, which was one of the matches of the year, one of the 3 matches of the year voted on by the fucking Observer and all this other stuff, and it was fabulous. We had 4 false finishes. It's just if we were doing at that time what some of these guys are doing now or even have been doing for the past 15 or 20 years, yes, I would have let Ole Anderson bitch slap me around and I would have never done that shit again because it's fucking ridiculous. But when you're in a position to get over and to draw the money, you have to have a above average match, but it's just there's no difference now. We've numbed people to all the bumping.